One man changed the course of human history, while believing he had failed. He never reached the place he was looking for. He never realized where he had actually landed. He died, convinced he had found a route to Asia. Yet today, his name is on cities, monuments, a national holiday, and one of the most famous dates in world history. So here's the question. How did the man who misunderstood almost everything become the man history remembered as the one who discovered America? The answer isn't just about Christopher Columbus. It's about conquest, it's about myth, and it's about one encounter in 1492 that transformed the fate of two hemispheres forever. Because the story most of us learned in school is only part of what happened. This is the real story of Christopher Columbus, the voyage, the first contact, and the beginning of a world that would never be the same. The world before 1492. To understand what happened in 1492, you first have to understand what Columbus was actually trying to accomplish. He wasn't searching for a new continent. As far as Europe knew, there wasn't one. He was searching for a shortcut. For centuries, Europe's wealth depended on trade with Asia. Silk, spices, porcelain, and precious goods that traveled thousands of miles across the Middle East before reaching European markets. Every empire along the route claimed its share, making these goods slow to arrive and extraordinarily expensive. European rulers wanted another way. Contrary to a popular myth, educated Europeans already knew the Earth was round. The real debate wasn't its shape, it was its size. Columbus believed Asia was much closer than it actually was. His calculations were spectacularly wrong. He thought sailing west would take only a few thousand miles. The real distance was more than 3 times farther. Portugal rejected his proposal. Spain rejected it, then rejected it again. But in 1492, the same year Spain completed the Reconquista by conquering the last Muslim kingdom on the Iberian Peninsula, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella finally agreed to finance his voyage. Not because they trusted his mathematics, but because if he was somehow right, the reward could be an empire. First contact. What really happened? Columbus wasn't greeted by empty land. He was greeted by people. The Taíno people, organized, skilled, and living in complex societies across the Caribbean. His own journal, his own words, describe them as gentle, generous, and unarmed. And in that same journal, on that same day, he wrote something else. He noted how easily they could be conquered, how few soldiers it would take to subdue them, how useful they would be as servants. This wasn't a slow descent into exploitation. It was the plan from day one. Columbus took several Taíno people by force back to Spain, as proof of his discovery, and as a preview of what he intended to do with the land itself. He called the region the Indies, believing he'd reached Asia. That mistaken name is why the native peoples of 2 entire continents were mislabeled Indians for the next 500 years. He made 3 more voyages after this one. Each one deepened the same pattern. The colonization. What followed? Here is the part most textbooks compress into a single sentence. Columbus was made governor of the settlements he founded, and under his direct authority, the Taíno population was forced into labor, mining for gold that Columbus had promised the Spanish crown, but that barely existed in the quantities he'd claimed. Quotas were brutal. Taíno people who failed to deliver enough gold faced mutilation. Punishment was public and severe, designed to terrify the population into compliance. Resistance was met with organized violence. Villages were destroyed. Historical accounts describe massacres carried out under Columbus's governance, and then came something no army could stop. Disease. Smallpox, influenza, measles. Illnesses the Taíno had never been exposed to and had no immunity against. Within about 60 years of Columbus's arrival, The Taíno population of Hispaniola, once numbering in the hundreds of thousands, had been reduced to a tiny fraction of that number. Columbus didn't personally cause the disease, but the system he built, forced labor, starvation, violence, displacement, made the population catastrophically more vulnerable to it. His own colonial administration became so brutal that Spain eventually arrested him. In 1500, Columbus was sent back to Spain in chains, stripped of his governorship, accused of mismanagement and cruelty, even by the standards of his own empire. He died in 1506, still insisting, until his final breath, that he had reached Asia. He never knew what he had actually found, the legacy, why it still matters. For most of American history, Columbus was taught as a hero, a bold explorer, a symbol of discovery and courage. That image didn't come from nowhere. It was built deliberately, centuries later, by communities and institutions who needed a founding myth for a new nation. But the myth required leaving something out. It required forgetting that discovery meant nothing to the millions of people already living there. It required forgetting that first contact was followed almost immediately by forced labor, violence, and disease on a scale that reshaped the population of an entire hemisphere. Today, that reckoning is finally happening in public. Some cities and states have replaced Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day, not to erase the historical moment, but to shift whose experience of it gets centered. Because 1492 was not the story of one brave man finding something new. It was the beginning of a collision between two worlds, and only one of them got to write the history books for the next 500 years. Outro. Christopher Columbus crossed an ocean looking for Asia. He found two continents he never understood, populated by millions of people he immediately saw as conquerable. He never apologized. He never corrected the record. He died believing his own myth. We don't get that luxury. History doesn't ask you to like what happened. It asks you to know it. Fully, honestly, without the parts quietly cut out. This has been American Archive. Don't forget history. For more history videos, please subscribe to American Archives.